Hello YouTube, it's Ash, and today I have a video that I know you all have been waiting for. I'm going to talk about what we have made, like what we've actually made in money the past 3 months driving for Schneider. So let's just get into the video. So right here I have all of our pay stubs. Well, almost all of our pay stubs. I'm missing 2. They just haven't come in the mail yet. Well, 1 we haven't finished and 1 hasn't come in the mail yet. And then 2 from when we first started I don't have. But I wanted to tell you what we're getting paid. But before I jump into the pay stubs, and you can feel free to skip ahead, but this is very important information I feel like, because this was never explained to us. So what I noticed was on our paychecks, they were being split up. There was a section that said per diem, and there was a section that said long haul miles. And if you added the long haul miles was like, let's say 38 cents a mile, and the per diem was 16 cents a mile. If you added those up, it gave us like 54 cents a mile. And I knew that we were supposed to be getting paid 56 cents a mile. So I was wondering why there was a deficit between the 54 and the 56 cents. As it turns out, we were enrolled in what's called the per diem program. So the per diem program is a reimbursement from the IRS, so it's non-taxable, and it's offered to OTR drivers and basically allows you to take home a portion of your pay non-taxed, which in its face seems super awesome. But the catch is that to be in the per diem program, they charge you 2 cents for every mile. So that's why there was that deficit between the 54 cents and the 56 cents per mile, which was confusing to me. And it was weird because it was never explained to us first of all, it was never explained. We were never told how that worked until I asked my DBL for a breakdown of our paycheck, because it was confusing, and it still is kind of confusing, but I understand it a little bit more. But it wasn't until I asked him to tell me about my paycheck until he told me about the per diem program. And so we had automatically been enrolled. Now, what he advised and what I advise as well is that before you decide to either opt yourself into the program or opt yourself out of the per diem program, is that you discuss your financial situation with a CPA, a certified personal accountant, because there obviously is a direct effect to your taxes at the end of the year in terms of whether or not you choose to be in the program. But what I was kind of coming to the conclusion as, and if you are a CPA, let me know, the more miles you spend on the road, that 2% that you're being fined to be in the per diem program kind of tends to outweigh, it tends to be a greater charge than if you were to just be taxed on your full amount. So if you take yourself out of the per diem program, you're taxed on the full amount of your paycheck. So the idea, if you're looking at it from a positive standpoint, is that you should be able to take more home, because like 20% of your paycheck isn't being taxed in terms of your miles. But the more miles you drive, the more you're paying in a fee. So my DBL said, and what was making sense to me, is the more miles that you drive, the longer you're out on the road, the less home time you have, the more likely it is that the per diem program isn't a great option for you. However, if you're spending more time at home, like if you're home every weekend because you're local or regional, it may be a better option for you to get bigger paychecks and to be in that per diem program, because you're not getting quite as many miles in a week. So all of these paychecks and the gross amounts that I am explaining to you and telling you right now are with me opted into the per diem program. So there's 2 cents for every mile that we're not seeing in income on these checks. However, 16 cents of my full 54 cents per mile is not being taxed. Now, the other thing is I am only going to be giving you the gross numbers for these paychecks, which is the amount before taxes, because net income, what I'm actually taking home, differs for everybody depending on your tax bracket, how you've set up your taxes, if you're enrolled in benefits, if you're paying into your 401k. So all that being said, it's not really what we're taking home in our bank accounts, because there's taxes being taken out of it. However, if we go with the gross number, then that's a more standard number. Hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions, there is a link, not a link, like a blog post on Schneider's website explaining the per diem program. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can also call your DBL and they should explain it to you as well. I would recommend both. The weird thing about the article on Schneider's website is I couldn't find where it told you they were charging 2 cents per mile to be enrolled in that program. It didn't mention that at all. So if I had just read that article, I would have thought that the per diem program was a great thing and not seen any downside to it. But keep in mind again that you're paying 2 cents per mile to be in this program. So really, I'm not trying to tell you which is best for you. Again, you need to talk to your CPA and your DBL and review your financial situation to understand which would be best. But I don't think that the article on Schneider's website did a great job of presenting an unbiased opinion. So anyway, if you have any questions, you can leave them down below and I'll try and answer them about the per diem program, but hopefully that makes sense. So now that we're 6 minutes into this video, let's talk about what you all want to know, which is the numbers. So the first four or 5 weeks we were with Schneider was just training. We were in the CAP program. So you get paid $80 a day. And so my first paycheck was gross $480. The second paycheck was $560. The third paycheck and the fourth paycheck were also $560. So the first 4 weeks were pretty consistent in terms of the amount. And then the next paycheck is when we were not, I think that's when we passed our CDL exam. So we were only there for 2 days. They only paid us for 2 days because our paycheck was $240. And then after that, that's when we start driving on the road. And you'll notice a trend in these numbers that I'm telling you, and that is that it gets bigger over time, because as we adjusted to being on the road and learning how to drive for 12 hours or 11 hours technically, and how to work for 12 hours in a row, and how to go to sleep for the next 12 hours and wake up again, like we had to adjust. So you'll see that these numbers get bigger and bigger. So our next paycheck, when we first started driving, our first paycheck for that week was $621. Our next paycheck was $1,093. And then our next paycheck dropped down to $1,000 even. The nice thing about Schneider is at this time currently, and when we hired on, since we did their CAP program, they told us that if we drive for them, we will be guaranteed a gross paycheck of $1,000 a month. So you don't take home $1,000, but they will pay you $1,000. So on that paycheck, they had to give us $15 for us to gross $1,000 that week. We had just been a little bit short in terms of making that full amount. So they brought us up to $1,000 that week. So that was good. Otherwise we wouldn't have hit $1,000. So the next paycheck was $1,051. And so at this point, we're above the $1,000 guaranteed pay. And that week I did the math. I didn't do the math on every paycheck because I have a lot of paychecks here, obviously. And so the week that we made $1,051, we drove 3,900 miles approximately. And then the next week, which is the last official paycheck I have, we made $1,180 and we drove 4,300 miles. Now, we just ended the last week and we drove, from what I can tell, approximately 4,800 miles. So I'm expecting a larger paycheck than $1,180, which was the one previous. So I'm hoping anywhere from like $1,300 of the paycheck. I don't really know. I guess I could run a proportion on it, but I didn't. So you can do the math if you're really curious, but we drove 500 miles more than the previous week. So whatever that will equate to in a paycheck, hopefully anywhere from like $1,300 to $1,500 is what I'm expecting. So overall, that is making 54 cents a mile and then part of my income not being taxed. I think that my paychecks will be more significant because I've opted out of the per diem program. Hopefully that wasn't a mistake and that will start reflecting in my next paycheck, so we'll see if they get higher. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is regardless of how many miles you drive personally versus how many miles your team driver completes on their shift, the miles are split amongst you evenly. So Kyle and I, for those of you who don't know Kyle, he's my team driving partner and he's my amazing boyfriend. But if he drives one day 500 miles and I drive the next day 300 miles because I'm working at a shipper and then making a delivery, we're still going to be paid the split of 800 miles. So we would get 400 miles apiece. So his and my incomes are basically the exact same minus the benefits that we do and don't take in our 401k, etc. But what we gross is the exact same, and that's going to be the case if you're team driving. Now, what I am excited about is the fact that when we got hired on, we were told that we were going to average 5,500 miles a week, and this last week we were at 4,800 miles. And this last week, keep in mind, all of these last 3 paychecks, the ones above $1,000, we have had significant problems which have delayed us by anywhere from 8 hours to 16 hours, whether it's mechanical or weather delays. We've had multiple weather delays through Nebraska and Wyoming, and then we have had a couple mechanical delays as well. So if we can get a couple weeks where we have no problems with weather and mechanics, and we can get a full 5,000 to 5,500 miles, obviously we'll start making more like 1,500 a week gross to 1,600 a week gross, which would be really fucking awesome. So that's what we're making right now. The other thing to keep in mind is Schneider offers bonus increases up to 4 cents per mile every quarter, depending on if you meet your metrics or not. Those metrics being if you return back to work on time from being on home time, if you meet your MPGs, so your miles per gallon, if you fuel where they want you to, and then your safety score, I think, is another one, and maybe on time delivery. I can't even remember. But so if you meet 5 of the metrics, you get 4 cents per mile. If you meet 4 of the metrics, you get 3 cents per mile. If you meet 3, you get 2, and if you meet 2, you get 1 cent per mile. And then that is applied to all of your miles for the next quarter, if that makes sense. And again, if you have questions on that, you can call your DBL. And then we're supposedly supposed to get an increase at 90 days of driving for Schneider, and then at 6 months of driving for Schneider, we're supposed to get a 1 cent raise, and then at 12 months. So we should end at 59 cents per mile. And then one more thing, I'm pretty sure we get paid more as team drivers than solo drivers. So if these numbers seem slightly higher than what you're being paid as a solo driver, it could be because, as I understand it, they bring teams on at a slightly higher mileage rate than solo drivers. But if I'm wrong, let me know. My phone died. Oops. So anyway, this is basically the end of the video. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them down below. I hope you enjoyed this content. Hopefully it was helpful to you, so you can know if you're a team driver, kind of what you can expect, what you can expect to make depending on the miles that you're able to drive. And that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next video. Okay. Oh, and subscribe. Bye.